Welcome everyone, and this is lesson number 9, and we'll be talking about trend lines. I'll try to keep this video under 10 minutes because I don't think there's actually a video out there that covers trend lines under 10 minutes. Alright, so let's just jump right into it. Key thing to know here is that the trend is your friend. Alright, if you know how to use it properly, then it's definitely your friend. I have heard people and people have spoken to me about how they use trend lines, but this is just how I use them. So there could be many different other applications that you might hear. That's cool. Feel free to share it in the comments if you do come across one, but this is my primary use, and it's to identify the overall trend and then to place my entries or exits. And the two strategies that I apply when I use the trend lines is to either trend trade, so to go with the flow. By flow, it's the direction of the price, or the overall direction of the price, or when you go against the flow or against the overall direction of the price. And when you go with the flow, it's called trend trading, and when you go against the flow, it's called counter trading. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's in the name, right? Counter, it's to go against, and then with is just the trend trading. So let's take a look at our candidates here. So Activision Blizzard, let's go ahead and draw in our trend line here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick the bottom right there, and this looks like a pretty good trend line to draw. So if you're using our first technique here, the trend trading, and to go with the flow, then you're going to say, okay, every time it touches the trend line here, it's going to bounce right back on up. And so you would essentially be buying the dip. And it worked here. And you notice that, okay, $75 is a resistance, and then actually 80, right? It goes to 80 and then it comes down. And then you have this opportunity again where it does touch the trend line that was intact since early 2017 here, and you take your chance. Right, you don't know if it's going to work or if it's going to fail unless it actually does one or the other. And the whole point is to minimize your losses because you're using the trend line. And in this case, it continued to work, and now you're eyeing the $75 or $80 price target because those were the previous resistances. And so that's pretty much the idea of trend trading. So you just follow that and you take your profits where you think the resistance is. So in this case now, you think, okay, it's $80 is where I'm going to take my profit here. And so you think now after this, the price is going to just crash through. And so you go ahead and you draw the other trend here. And so you're thinking the price is going to either continue down or make its way back on up, but you are feeling bullish relative to the the current price action, which is going down, and so that would be counter trend, right? That's what when you go against the flow. So right now the flow here, or the I guess the short-term trend is going down, but the overarching long-term trend is it's going up, and you think the long-term trend here will prevail. So you counter trade here, or counter trend trade with the short-term trend here, and you take your profits when it reaches $80 again. So that's one example where you can apply the first strategy, which was just the trend trading. You go with the flow, and then the next one, which was the counter trend trading, which is the one that we just placed. And that's essentially the overall gist of using these trend lines. So now let's go ahead and take a look at another example. So we have Canopy Growth Corporation here. And so if I go ahead and draw the trend line for this one, so extend, and so we could say roughly that this would be the long-term trend, and you know, moments where it touches that trend line, you would buy. And notice how this trend line isn't perfect. If we were to zoom in here closer, we can see that it actually managed to close below it, but the very next day it opened back above that long-term trend, which was a bullish sign. And then there was heavy volume that day too, so that's really the sign that the next leg on up was going to occur. And of course, now we're Canopy is potentially looking at facing another make or break moment where the short-term descending here pattern or trend is up against the long-term increasing trend. So we'll see what happens there. Of course, this can also be used from a day trading sort of time frame, a faster one too. So if we go ahead and take a look at ADIL, this was footage here of live stream of myself placing well, not a trade, but this is essentially what I do when I do look for a candidate to trade. And so if we were to take a closer look at how I apply this to you know, an intraday graph such as the 1 minute time frame, notice that the first thing that I did there was I zoomed out, because I want a broader perspective of the price action. So first thing you got to do is you zoom out, then you apply that trend that you see. Okay, you see, you know, normally these trends, they come in you know, a linear fashion, so all you got to do is identify where the bottom is roughly at and draw in the lines. Triangles are essentially the shapes that you want to also be mindful of. So if I were to quickly, you know, go through here, I also I think go on to then identify here. Let's see. Notice how that trend is just holding, and then now it's testing. But I also managed to draw in the resistance as well. So again, it looks like it's forming a triangle with the two lines. So now notice this candle. Are we going to see it break? Notice how it needs to get that close above the line that I drew. Does it get that? No, it does not. So that was a fake one. So it hit $5 resistance at the whole dollar, and now it failed to close above the resistance that I managed to draw in there. So if we keep going here, let's just keep going. So now it breaks the trend line, right? So now we're left to see, okay, well, it broke the trend line, which is a bad sign. And that's where I also made my alert on StockTwits, I believe. I just took a screenshot and I alerted my followers that, okay, this doesn't look like it's going to be in play. And if we were to continue through here, let's actually speed things up a bit more. So I'm just going to go through here. You know, that resistance is just not giving up here. It's, you know, people are taking profit at around 480 on this one. So, you know, I extended that line there, and looks like it's just battling there, and you know, now there's a new short-term trend in play now, right? And it looks like it's no longer something that that's of interest. So then, oh, there you go. I even stopped looking at it. But actually I want to see, so what time? That looks like it's around 8:10, 8:15ish. So let's go ahead and I just want to see where it closed off the day at. So 1 day, and okay, right. So if we go and have a look here, right? So notice that 8. Yeah, see, it just, the sell-off, I didn't even manage to look at it, but anyhow, right, that new short-term trend kicked in and the sell-off occurred, and it just never made its way back on up. So, you know, you gotta also know when to move on and look for the, because time is essential here when you're especially a day trader. You gotta just keep sifting through, see what's hot, what the market wants, so, or yeah, what the market's after, what people are after. So yeah, that pretty much covers the lessons on trend lines. How you go about actually identifying them, though, is you pretty much identify, well, you zoom out first, right? You zoom out, and then here, let me actually, why is this? It was set on 2 days, I think, right? So if we do 1 day, you zoom out during the course of the day, and then, or if you zoom out, if we go back to our Activision Blizzard here, notice that the first thing that I did was, of course, I needed to zoom out here and then identify right, the lowest low here in this trend, and because there was a gap up, I just chose to identify that as the lower low. And then after you decide on where the lowest point is, then you find the next lower low to form, and that would be, in this case, because this had already formed, I'm going to choose this one right there. So let's just use that one, and then I'm going to extend the line over, right? So I could easily just, you know, place it there, then I just want to extend the line over. So I go ahead and do that. So now I can apply that trend line here and here when it does interact with this trend line. And that's on the way up. So you identify the low, and then you identify the next higher low. But when it's going to trend down, you identify the highest point in the graph, and then you identify the lower high, which is this one over here, and then you just extend it down. So you go ahead and notice how that's still intact. So the overall short-term downtrend for Activision Blizzard is still intact. And then, of course, when the trends interact or the price reaches it, then you go ahead and you pick a side and you know, manage your risk. So let's go ahead and see. Right, so in summary of this lesson, ask yourself the following questions. How can I determine the overall direction of the price, and where could I possibly look for an entry or exit? And as always, thanks for watching. Feel free to hit like and subscribe, and follow me on StockTwits, Twitter, and Instagram. Note that I'll only pretty much be available on these platforms. I don't sell you guys anything. Everything that I provide is for free. And of course, if you haven't done so already, make sure you do subscribe, because I'm going YouTube live now, so you'll definitely be able to watch me trade as well. And of course, it doesn't mean you have to place the same trades. Just if you want to see what I'm looking at, then you'll have access to that as well. Alright, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments below. Other than that, enjoy your day.